How quickly is President Trump likely to make his selection, and how swiftly then will we see Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell respond?
In this country, we call this the rocket docket when it involves cases coming before the Supreme Court or other courts when they are expedited. We're going to see, I think, a rocket docket for a Supreme Court nomination. So I think probably this week will not be too soon for Donald Trump, the president, to make a nomination from the list that he sent out last week, adding to the list he already had. So he's up to about 40 possibilities. And then I think Senator McConnell, the leader of the Republicans in the Senate, the majority leader, will begin to work on it immediately.
And there is work to be done on this. Confirmation hearings take time. It involves planning and scheduling and preparation. So is that likely to, that's going to take a couple of months, isn't it?
I think that it's going to be on a rocket docket process in that I think they've been ready for this. Obviously, Justice Ginsburg had been very ill, as everyone knew, particularly starting this summer. So I think that they're probably ready to go throw the switch, as it were, as soon as they got the official word that she had passed, and that they can get the confirmation hearing started. One issue will be having to bring in some members of the Senate who are out campaigning right now. A third of the Senate is up, and about 2/3 of those are Republicans, and some, a half dozen or so, are in very tight races. So that will be a cost to the Republicans to have to bring people in off the campaign trail, such as it is during COVID. So there will be that. And then I think they'll pick someone who is ready to hit the ground running, as they say, ready to go before a committee almost at a moment's notice and begin to circulate on Capitol Hill and do courtesy calls.
Just to be clear, so there's going to be a nomination and hearings taking place before the election, but what about the vote?
It's even possible, and particularly for Mitch McConnell, if he's trying to make this case to the Republican base that put him back in the Senate. He's up for a re-election in his home state of Kentucky. Put all the Republicans back in, keep the Republican majority, and keep President Trump in the Oval Office, because anytime there is an opening on the highest court in the land or the other federal benches, these will be reliable conservatives. So I think he'll try to get a vote prior to the election. If he cannot get it done that fast, it will happen in the so-called lame duck session that will be between the election and the end of this Congress, which actually ends before the inauguration. It will end the first week in January.
It's a Republican court nomination at stake, so obviously they're keen to move quickly. But how conscious is Mitch McConnell of the fact that this comes at an awkward time for Republicans who are facing tough races in the Senate, as you were saying? Is there a divergence, a clash between short and long-term interests here for them?
Yes, but I will tell you, he's probably in his home city of Louisville, which happens to be my home city in Kentucky, and we both are graduates of the University of Louisville, which is playing a very big football match this evening. And he's a huge football player, football fan. If he could have been a football player, I'm sure he would, but he was a bit too small for that. But he plays the long game and the short game. And so he will know exactly what strategy to use to maximize his goals, which are to be reelected himself, keep the Senate in Republican hands, get another conservative on the Supreme Court, and reelect Donald Trump.
What about public opinion? Will people be in favor of this being pushed through so quickly, particularly after what happened in 2016?
Well, there's an interesting split there as well. It shows, the polls are showing, just up to Justice Ginsburg's passing, the polls were showing that both Democrats and Republicans, to the tune of about 60%, were putting Supreme Court appointments in the top 3 or 4 of their prioritized issues for this upcoming election on November the 3rd. But what polls are also showing is that the vast majority of Americans want Joe Biden to pick the next nominee.
What about the options for the Democrats? Talk to us more about that, because their power is limited.
It is indeed. There's very little the Democrats can do except speak out forcefully, not only on Capitol Hill, but around the country for Biden and for those Democrats who are running against incumbent Republicans in the Senate to try to get a Democratic majority in the Senate. If that happens, they have to play the long game now as well, because the short game, they have almost no power because they're in the minority. The long game, if they should take over the Senate, perhaps would be to try to expand the membership of the court, the number of justices, which is in their right to do. It hasn't been done since 1869, but they could try to do that, particularly with a Democratic president and Joe Biden in the Oval Office, and then try to so-called pack the court with Democratic nominees among these new members.